The NFL draft is just 10 days away. Therefore, I had to bring in some of your favorite Broncos whiz kids prior to the NFL draft to talk a little bit about what positions the Broncos might look to bolster through the draft. Those whiz kids, of course, some of your favorites. We have Benjamin Allbright from Broncos Country tonight. Ben, the hair.
We're keeping it gelled down. It is almost full mullet season out here, so be careful. You never know when a mullet could come flying at you.
Well, I can't lie. It is tough to compete with James Palmer from the NFL Network. James, I don't even know how you do it.
Yeah, guys, it takes an army, takes a village. I'm just happy to be a whiz kid, being a guy from Philly. You know, the whiz kids is a big deal with us, with the Philadelphia Phillies from back in the day.
Of course. And then Cecil Lammey from 104.3 The Fan. Cecil, I know you invest in some serious hair product for that.
Yes, thank God for Suavecito. So it's otherwise it looked like Giorgio Tsoukalos from Ancient Aliens. So let's do it.
Well, you
Nice.
all are looking good. Thank you so much for being here today. Like I mentioned, we're talking about some of those defensive positions that the Broncos look to bolster through the draft. But I do have to mention free agency because like John Elway said, they're feeling really good heading into the draft because they were able to fill some glaring needs through free agency. One signing, of course, being A.J. Bouye. So I just wanted to get your thoughts on if you think the signing of A.J. Bouye will affect how Denver prioritizes when it comes to taking a corner in the draft. Cease?
I'll jump right in.
Somebody?
No, I'll take the reins. Yeah, I'll take the reins. I was just trying to take the back seat for a second. But here,
Don't do
you
that.
can never have too many corners. And, I've talked to enough people in the league to where teams always say the way you build your team is if you can go out and find way above average tackles, corners, and a quarterback. If you have those, and they emphasize those because they're hard to find, then you're on to something. And I think it's obvious and it's clear, and these guys I would almost bet my life would agree on me, they're going to take a corner in this draft. Where it happens, we don't know, and how many, we don't know. I've known that they're looking to possibly maybe move back from 15 if that's into play, and then move back up into the first round. So maybe they have 2 picks later in the first round, and you go and you get your guy in the secondary there. I don't think the signing of A.J. Bouye changes at all the need for corner. You just exchanged him and Chris Harris, essentially. There's still a dramatic need for another cornerback on this roster.
Yeah, you're getting Bryce Callahan back, but you don't know whether you can count on that for the health. And then everything down traced from there is a guy that's either unproven or probably better suited in the situational role. Whether it's Devontae Bosby, who played well in that dime corner role but then got hurt. Devontae Harris, who showed flashes at times but tailored off. Yadam, who hasn't taken that leap. So they're going to have to bolster the depth at minimum one way or the other. I suspect they come away with a corner day 1 or day 2.
Yeah, it's going to be a corner sometime with a premium pick. I consider that the first 3 rounds in the draft. And when you look at A.J. Bouye, great. He's your number 1 corner. Who's your number 2? Because to me, if Bryce Callahan is healthy, he's a slot corner. That's his best spot. That's where he's been, able to shine at the pro level. So for me, the Broncos still need a number 2 corner and to add talent to that room.
Also, on top of that, and I agree with Cecil, you're going to need a guy that's going to come in the talent group of those first 3 rounds. But you also hope that they can get themselves another Will Parks type in a later round type of pick that's going to be able to start contributing special teams first off, and then adding to this depth that Benjamin's talking about that you need to help out. If you can get somebody in the later rounds as well, I think that would be a really smart play for Denver.
Well, you talk about late rounds. What would have to happen for the Broncos to take a corner at 15?
Jeff Okudah to be there.
Yeah.
I can't, C.J. Henderson, somebody everybody's talked about, but he struggles tackling, and that's rule number 1 in Vic's secondary. You got to be able to hit, got to be a willing tackler. If C.J.'s not that guy, I could see James mentioned the Broncos trading back from 15. If their guy isn't there, they trade back. You could find one of those guys, a Fulton, a Gladney, somebody like that there, maybe at the end of the first if you double up those picks there.
I have to pose the same question for the defensive line. Jarrell Casey brought in from Tennessee. Obviously, Shelby Harris, he signs another 1-year deal. Do you guys think the defensive line is shored up at this point, or do you think that's also another position of emphasis during the draft?
John Elway is always the best player available. So when we get to 15, let's say those top 4 tackles are gone on the offensive side of the ball. Well, then is Javon Kinlaw the best player available at 15? I don't think it's out of the question that the Broncos go back to the well. Shelby Harris has got a 1-year deal, right? And then maybe he moves on in free agency. So you have to set yourself up for the future. Adding a guy like Kinlaw, tremendous talent. People saying Aaron Donald-like. I'll allow that. He's not Aaron Donald, but he's Aaron Donald-like. I think that'd be a great pick at 15 if they feel he's the best player available.
Yeah, I'll agree with Cecil in that sense. There's also Derek Brown in that part where there's kind of those two guys that are kind of up there. And let's be curious about this. There has been talk that the Broncos have been interested in possibly trading up. Now, a lot of that connection has been, is it for a specific tackle that fits what they like? What if it's for a defensive tackle or some other guy that starts falling because there's a run on offensive tackles? There's a run on receivers that maybe they're not in play with. And we know the quarterbacks are a part of that. Exactly what Cecil's saying. This could be like the Derwin James effect, where all of a sudden you're sitting there at 15 and one of these guys falls and you turn in the card in the blink of an eye going, I had him here on my board and we're sitting here at 15 and he's available.
Well, it's a Bradley Chubb scenario all over again. You don't expect a guy to be there that you have rated at that point in time. And when you're at 15, you mentioned the scenario perfectly with Derwin James. If you look at the math, the number of quarterbacks that are going to get taken, the number of tackles that are going to get taken, by the time you start doing all this and adding all this up, one player is going to be there that you're not going to expect, period and point blank. So while the Broncos don't necessarily need a defensive lineman for this year, you go back and look, Purcell's on a one-year deal, Harris on a one-year deal, Walker's on the last year of his deal. They're going to need to get some depth at some point, and now's a good time if the right guy's there.
Well, let's also remember when the New York Giants, for what was it, 4 years, guys, right in a row in the first round, where they kept taking Justin Tuck and Jason Pierre-Paul and all these defensive linemen. Everyone said, why do they keep doing that? And then they got to the Super Bowl and beat an undefeated Patriots team because they could get after the quarterback with that nice rotation of defensive line talent up front. And that's why Kinlaw, a player like him, maybe Brown falls that far. I don't think he does, but perhaps he's kind of falling right now, just kind of in terms of buzz. So the Broncos need to be open-minded and be fluid in the first round.
We talked about it a little bit last week on Broncos Country Tonight, actually, Benjamin Allbright, about how long it takes for an offensive tackle to develop. Is it kind of similar for a defensive lineman? Does it take about 3 to 4 years for a defensive lineman to develop, or do they usually develop a little bit quicker?
Well, I mean, if you talk about functional strength sometimes, but I mean, there are some guys that are plug and play. It just really depends. Okay. Receiver is one of the positions that actually takes longer to, kind of longer to develop. In terms of defensive linemen, I tend to think they hit their stride usually in year 2, especially the interior guys. It's just a question of getting an NFL strength and conditioning program. A lot of these guys have dominated against future insurance salesmen at the collegiate level. And, when you get up there against pro football players, it's a whole different world of strength. So.